channel. In our channel, we not only covers the gross anatomy lectures, also the histology in a nutshell, EC embryology, radiological anatomy series, anatomic quiz of today, anatomy practical exam series, and also the surgical anatomy and anatomical variations. So those who have not subscribed to our channel, you please subscribe now so that you will get the everyday updates. Now, today's topic is the scalp. Scalp is the first dissection in the head and neck region. So this head and neck itself is a difficult region in the gross anatomy. So to help the exam presentation, so in this head and neck classes, I will mostly cover the exam preparation of the topics. So you try to watch the channel for all the head and neck classes. We will start with the scalp class. The scalp we will see under the following heading: definition, extent, and layers of scalp. So first, definition. What is scalp? Scalp is the soft tissue which covers the calvaria of the skull. So this is the skull, and this is the soft tissue which covers the calvaria of the skull. If you see the extent, it extends in front to the supraorbital margin and behind to the superior nuchal line and external occipital protuberance, and on each side to the temporal fascia, on each side to the zygomatic arch, and overlapping the temporal fascia. So this forehead is common to the scalp and face anatomically. Now we will see the layers of the scalp. There are 5 layers of the scalp which can be remembered by the letters SCALP. That is the spelling of the scalp. So first layer is the skin. So that is the S. Second layer is the dense connective tissue, otherwise superficial fascia. So that is the letter C. And third layer is the epicranial aponeurosis. So that is A. And fourth layer is the loose areolar tissue. And fifth layer is the pericranium. So these are the 5 letters of the scalp and 5 layers of the scalp. So we will see the features of each layer along with the clinical anatomy of each layer. This scalp is not only an important theory question, it is also an important clinically oriented topic. So we will cover each layer and its importance. First, the skin. If you see the skin of the scalp, it is a thick skin and it contains abundant hair follicles and sebaceous glands. So it is the layer which is prone for the bacterial infection, fungal infections, and also the sebaceous cyst. So that's the applied importance of the scalp. Now the second layer, dense connective tissue. So you can appreciate in this picture dense connective tissue which is made of fibrofatty tissue. So it is very dense. So the swellings of the scalp are very painful because there is no space for the swelling to expand. Not only in the scalp, wherever there is dense connective tissue, the swellings are painful. So this layer contains large blood vessels and nerves. So this is the large blood vessel and nerves. You see the walls of the blood vessels, they are tightly adherent to the fibrous tissue. So when this layer is cut, the walls of the blood vessels are not able to retract. So they bleed profusely. If you are sitting in the casualty, if you see any children or persons with scalp injury, they will bring lots of clothes soaked in the blood. But if you see the injury will be very small. But you have to believe because the scalp injuries bleed profusely. Reason is the walls of the vessels are not able to retract. So that is the reason. Because of its rich vascular supply, the scalp injuries heal well. Not only in scalp, wherever there is rich blood supply, the wound healing will be very good. So if you, for example, if the scalp is caught in any machines along with the hair and the whole scalp is pulled out with a little pedicle attached to the scalp, we can suture it confidently. There will be the good healing of the scalp because of the rich vascular supply. So that is the importance of the second layer, dense connective tissue. Now we will move on to this third layer, epicranial aponeurosis and its muscle. First we will see the epicranius muscle. Epicranius muscle consists of occipitofrontalis and sometimes temporoparietalis. So this occipitofrontalis is made of two frontal bellies behind and two frontal bellies in front and two occipital bellies behind. If you compare these two bellies, occipital bellies have the bony origin and frontal bellies do not have the bony origin. And these frontal bellies are broader and wider. And these occipital bellies are narrower and they are separated by interval. If you see the origin of the occipital bellies, they take origin from the superior nuchal line. But these frontal bellies do not have the bony origin. They take origin from the subcutaneous tissue of the eyebrows and the root of the nose. What is the action of this epicranius muscle? Alternate contraction of these frontal bellies and occipital bellies can move the entire scalp front and back. You see the action of only this frontalis, they raise the eyebrows as in surprise and they produce the transverse wrinkles over the forehead as in the fright. Now we will see this epicranial aponeurosis. Epicranial aponeurosis is attaching the frontal bellies and occipital bellies. And when this aponeurosis is cut transversely, the wounds of the scalp gape. Otherwise, there is no gapping of the wound. If you see these three layers, this dense connective tissue layer connects the first layer and the third layer as if as one unit. So unless you do the micro dissection of these three layers, it is difficult to dissect the three layers separate in the dissection in the cadavers or in the surgeries. So now we will see the fourth layer, loose areolar tissue. So this layer is made of loose areolar tissue, otherwise loose subaponeurotic space. As if this is a potential space beneath the aponeurosis. So now you should compare this layer with the second layer. Second layer is very dense and this layer is very loose as if like a potential space beneath the subaponeurotic space. So now we will see the importance of this fourth layer. This fourth layer contains the emissary veins which connect the veins of the scalp with the dural venous sinuses. So the infections of the scalp can spread to the dural venous sinuses. So in practicals, one question is, which is the dangerous area of the scalp? Why? This dangerous area of the scalp is the fourth layer because it contains emissary veins. So that infections of the scalp can spread into the dural venous sinuses. Another important clinical importance of this layer is black eye. What is black eye is when there is a blow to the skull and bleeding in this layer. So the blood in this space slowly gravitates into the upper eyelids. So after few days, blood appears in the upper eyelids as black. Why? Because the frontalis is not having bony attachment. Now the scalp is continuous with the upper eyelid. So that's the reason for the black eye. One more importance of this layer you should know is caput. Caput is the most often used word by the obstetricians. So what is this caput is the swollen edematous part of the scalp. Otherwise, scalp is swollen as a whole in normal labor in the cephalic presentation because of the venous interference of the scalp. Cause is the labor will take hours together and the cephalic presentation causes the venous interference. So this caput is why this is important for the obstetricians is when they put their fingers into the cervix for the cervical dilatation, the swollen portion of the scalp is palpated by their fingers. So if the caput is increasing in size, it indicates that the labor is not proceeding and they should think of the other options. If you see in the newborn this caput, there will be the uniform swelling of the scalp and it will subside after few days. So we have covered this fourth layer also. Now we will move on to the fifth layer, that is the pericranium. Pericranium is the outer periosteum of the skull, which is continuous with the suture so that it is continuous with the inner periosteum of the skull. Inner periosteum of the skull is formed by the endosteal layer of the dura mater. So if there is any bleeding beneath this layer, it can't spread crossing the sutures. So that happens again in the labor. If there is not a progress in the normal labor, the obstetricians put the forceps or vacuum. So bleeding beneath this layer, that will be called as cephalohematoma. So this swelling cannot cross the sutures. So the swelling takes the shape of the overlying bones. So cephalohematoma you can differentiate from the caput. Caput is the uniform swelling and cephalohematoma will be the taking the shape of the bones above. And this cephalohematoma will take more time to subside than the caput. So we have covered the features of the each layer along with their applied importance. The nerve supply and the arterial supply of the scalp we will cover in the next class. So you subscribe to the channel and watch the classes for the everyday updates.